First of all, this prime time programme, to say it was disturbing would be an understatement. To see the way horses were treated was horrific in the extreme. But I think, you know, as a country who pride itself on its horse racing industry and its horse sport industry, it most definitely did reputational damage to us that an abattoir like this was allowed to operate under our jurisdiction. The second thing, you know, these were horses destined for the food chain, and there's also collateral damage, you know, to our reputation as food exporters. And when we can allow something like that to happen in a slaughter plant, it definitely does reputational damage to us as our green image and our producers of top quality food here. So there's a lot of implications, and I personally felt let down by what I saw on the programme and how it was allowed to happen under our watch. And before I go to some specific items, I want to read something that you said here to this committee in 20 July 2021, Mr. Sheehan. I am happy to say we are very satisfied with how the slaughter plant here operates, or how the plants operated in the past. They are operated and regulated in much the same way as beef or sheep slaughter plants. We have a full-time official Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine veterinarian present at all times when slaughter is taking place. Ante and post-mortem inspections is carried out, and temporary veterinary inspectors carry out the post-mortem inspections supported by technical staff. We have very detailed guidelines as to how the slaughter plant operates, and in fact we have a 51-page standard operating procedure detailing every aspect of how the horses are taken in, the documentary and identity checks, the ante-mortem and post-mortem, and so on. That was said here 3 years ago at committee, and it was during COVID, so you wouldn't have been present here in the room. Well, to try and relay that to the footage that we saw this night 2 weeks is going to take an awful lot of explaining to this committee, and to say I am extremely disappointed that we allowed a situation like that to happen in a slaughter plant. You've said there that the lairage, you know, was outside the jurisdiction of the plant. I just, you know, I just can't understand that. That just defies explanation. In any factory that I was ever in, department officials had full access to the lairage, and they would inspect it there would be a veterinarian present in the lairage, or at least a department official always present in the lairage. And some of the scenes that we saw in that programme happening in the lairage, you know, a mare falling, and, you know, and she in the lairage waiting for slaughter, the foal being dragged out dead from under, the mare then being dragged out dead, other horses being dragged out dead. You know, to know that, how that could happen under the department's watch, you know, is extremely disappointing. And I suppose there's a number of other questions that I want to ask, and questions I've asked here before, and I never haven't got correct answers to them. But the day for our questions not being answered is now over. And I want to know, how many horses in this country aren't microchipped? A number of years ago, we got a figure of around 18 to 19%. And we've told that horse census have been done since. But how can we have any confidence in a system where a significant percentage of the horses have no identification? And in my part of the country, we've had 3 road accidents in the past couple of months with horses. And those 3 horses were either injured or killed in those accidents, and more importantly, occupants of the cars were seriously injured as well. None of those 3 horses were microchipped, but still there's large herds of horses in that vicinity let go unchecked. How many horses are being exported live out of this country? Have we any record of it? Like that programme highlighted the other night that there was a load of horses going out, and they were going out as car parts. And it seemed to me that there is the ability to take horses without any identification from this country, take them to Northern Ireland, get identification, and then proceed to get those horses slaughtered elsewhere or sell them for another pursuit on the continent. And passports, how many horses were killed in that plant last year in Kildare? And are all the passports accounted for? And are they all accounted for? And what happens to those passports? And are they, you know, with cattle, your card is handed up your card is handed up with cattle when your animal is slaughtered. Have we a full record of how many horses were slaughtered there and our passports? And you said the post-mortem, you know, is done and by a veterinarian. It baffles me how anyone could do a post-mortem on a horse and not find that there was a second microchip in the horse. If a second microchip is inserted, surely any form of a credible post-mortem would find that microchip. And I don't want to hog the meeting, but traceability. Again, when you sell a horse, why haven't that record of that movement to be automatically recorded? We are in an age of modern technology, and I think, you know, the traceability of horses is still very definitely 50 years ago, back in the 20th century. We're most definitely not availing of the technology is out there, and like it's gone a point of no return for us to get confidence in the traceability and assurances. We need to move on our use of technology immeasurably, and you know, things that we have seen, things that have been reported happening in that programme, just cannot be let continue. And Mr. Shane, you know, every one of us here, I would say I'm making the views of the committee, but we're extremely disappointed with what has happened. And I'm not going to leave it tooting it. We're laying the blame at the department's door, because this plant was under the supervision of the department and the job was not done correctly. And it's doing huge reputational damage to us. We can't put the genie back into the bottle, but most definitely, you know, the assurance that we got 3 years ago have proved to be empty promises. But this committee intends to focus very much on these issues, and we have focused on them over the last number of years, but unfortunately assurances that we got, etc., have proven to be false, and we're not going to let that continue.
Want to come back in?
Yes,
yeah,
Mr. Shane.
So, yeah, thanks, Chairman. I agree with a lot of what you've said. Reputational damage and all that kind of stuff, that goes without saying. What I said in 2021, I was saying on the basis that I had been in this plant. You know, it's a small plant killing relatively small numbers of horses. What I saw myself with my own eyes in the plant, you know, was an operation with horses in relatively good condition coming in, going into the layerage that we supervised. You know, just to clarify, the place where the footage was shown is it's not the layerage of the plant. It's a separate, you know, shed beside it. Now, I know people will say that's splitting hairs, but there is an actual layerage within the plant, the same as there is in every other beef slaughter plant or sheep slaughter plant, where the horses come into on the day of slaughter, that we do supervise, scan the horses and all the rest of it. So if I hadn't seen the footage that we saw last week, I wouldn't have believed that what was happening in that shed next door was happening. I've been, like most members of the committee, I'm from a farm. I've been working with animals all my life. I've seen a lot of bad welfare stuff. You know, I mean, you know, a lot of bad welfare stuff crosses my desk, you know, as part of my job, because, you know, with 130,000 farms out there, you know, things do go wrong. But usually the sort of welfare cases, even the very bad ones we see, are usually because of misfortunate circumstances, where somebody with mental health problems or addiction problems or something like that, you know, and animals go for, you know, weeks without food or water, and you end up with some catastrophes. But this was different. I've never in my life seen what we saw on the programme as regards to gratuitous violence, that was being used, on those horses. I've never seen it on horses, but I've never really seen it. And, and I've spent my whole life in and out of marts and factories and assembly centres and all this. And I've literally never seen it. And I've spoken to a lot of people since the programme, and I haven't met anyone who has seen that kind of behaviour. So if it wasn't for the hidden cameras, I simply wouldn't have believed that it was possible that somebody would do that, But maybe I'm naive, but I've been around animals and farmers and horse owners and everything, and I simply couldn't believe somebody would do that, So, but anyway, you asked a few questions. So, look, I mean, the programme was absolutely shocking. It was an eye-opener, but anyway, you asked a few questions there about the second. You asked how come if there's a second microchip, surely that rings alarm bells or whatever. It does. So, I mean, since about 2016, if there are 2 microchips in the horse goes, the carcass goes into skip. So what we understand was happening in the programme, now the investigation is still at an early stage where we saw a microchip being inserted into a horse. From what we can gather, we thought we had every time something new crops up, we try and close that loophole. But it seems in this case that we'd heard rumours that it was possible to order a microchip, from China, we'll say for the sake of argument, to match an existing passport. So we've never actually come across such a microchip, but it would appear from the programme that's the only explanation we can get, because it seems that the horse that got the microchip, we saw the footage of getting the microchip put into it, it either didn't have an existing microchip or else they have some mechanism of killing that microchip, but it more than likely didn't have a microchip. So they had a clean passport, they ordered the microchip to match the clean passport, and they put that into the horse, and this horse was already recorded on the database. So it would appear that's how they beat the system. But as I say, the investigation is at an early stage. We had a bit of discussion at our meeting with the other countries this morning about, and that seems to be the consensus as to the most likely thing so that's a kind of a new development, that you can actually order a microchip. You can ask for a specific number and get a microchip delivered to you with that specific number to match the existing passport. So I think, as my colleague from HSI said, it's got difficult now to tamper with the passports because of there are holograms and all sorts of things. So it's not easy now to tamper with the passport. So this seems to be the next trick that people have managed to come up with, which is the ordering a microchip from wherever you can get it from. I don't know, but there obviously is some nefarious organisation that you can order them from. And but as I say, the investigation is at an early stage. So, but that's where we think it looks like it's leading. And again, we will be getting the footage from RTE. So we don't know, was this a one-off thing, or was this, how many horses? I'm not sure how long their hidden cameras were there for. I presume they were there for some number of months. So I suppose when we see the footage, we'll get some idea as to how widespread a practice this was, or what, so, but we don't know that at this stage.
And I asked you the question, how many horses do you think in the country are microchipped?
Yeah, we don't know that. We think that the horse population in total at the moment is about, I think, 90 to 95,000. My colleague Francis might be better able to answer that. We don't know how many horses are not microchipped. I suppose we have a sense that it's a lot less, the unidentified horses is a lot less than it was. Even, I use the example of Ballinasloe Fair. We did an operation with the Guards some years ago, where for the first time the Guards set up checkpoints on the gathering there, whatever they call it, for Ballinasloe Fair, and we accompanied them. And the first year we did it, which is probably going back 10 years or something now, the number of horses arriving at the fair without passports was very high. I'd say maybe 10 or 20% of them had passports. And on the day, the approach we took with the agreement of the Guards was simply that we told people, look, if you come back next year without a passport, you'll be turned away and are prosecuted. So the second year we did it, the number of horses without passports was very small, so, and the third year we did it, there was virtually no horses turned up, even in Ballinasloe, without passports. Now, that's just one sample, I suppose Ballinasloe is a big fair, and I suppose it's one sample, but how many horses there are, around the country without microchips, obviously it's impossible to give you an accurate answer to that, but every indication we have seems to be that there are generally far less unwanted horses, abandoned horses now than there were, but as you'll be well aware, there are still plenty of problems.
And how many are being exported out of the country?
Yeah, we have figures on how many are being exported out of the country. So, you know, I know you mentioned about car parts and all that kind of stuff, but so we're not, I know that was mentioned in the programme, we're not really clear, and again it was mentioned this morning at our meeting with the EU colleagues, we're not really clear what that's about. What, you know, they talked about horses being misclassified as tractor parts or something like that. All our horses that are exported through Rosslare in Dublin, they go with a health cert. We know exactly how many there were. I haven't the figure off the top of my head now, but we can provide those figures. We have exact figures on how many horses go out through Rosslare in Dublin.
I'd say that most of the horses that are going without traceability aren't going through Rosslare or Dublin.
No, I mean, obviously the fact that there is free movement between ourselves and the north obviously is, you know, is an issue.